This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Today, we're starting with chapter 31, Play for Your Supper, and the symbol is the hair-marked blade.
Yeah, the hair-marked blade plays a pretty big role in these next couple of episodes.
Yeah.
Or next couple of chapters. Episodes.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Sort of. I think what I want to start with is some of the confusion that I see around this chapter.
Okay.
These first few sentences actually set up a flashback, and the next 3 chapters occur in a flashback.
I didn't even realize that.
And so this scarf that he's talking about having, that a farmer gave to him,
Yeah.
is actually the same scarf that we see like in 3 chapters. We see the farmer give it to him. It's just that this first maybe paragraph is after the incident in the inn.
Yeah.
After Matt's looked at the lightning because his eyes are sensitive. And that's when they got the scarves.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't even realize.
People get a little confused with the timeline here because they're like, wait, what's going on? The trick is that this first paragraph is actually after the next 3 chapters.
Huh. Yeah, I liked what the farmer said. I don't know what you're running from, and I don't want to, basically. And he gives him the scarves and says, I have a family, but here, hopefully this will help.
As they talk, they're hiding, right? They're on the side of the road. They think something is coming from them.
Yeah.
And then he sort of thinks back. He's got this scarf on, which is dirty, and he thinks back to when the farmer gave it to him.
Right.
And then if we pay attention, that same sentence happens again later, and we'll meet that farmer. And that farmer, I think, is the same one who has the apple orchards.
Oh.
In the last book, or the first Sanderson book.
Yeah.
When Rand comes down off the mountain after Veins of Gold, that's the farmer. I think ends up being the same guy.
Oh, holy shit.
Let me check the internet to make sure I'm not making that up.
Yeah, check it out.
I don't think it's necessarily the farmer who has the apple orchard. That's a different farmer who also gives them a ride.
Gotcha.
So there are 2 different guys. But here is a quote from chapter 33, which is 2 chapters forward. "The queen should do something, the light illumine her," he muttered, knuckling his forehead respectfully but absent-mindedly. He hardly looked at Rand or Matt, but when he let them down by a narrow rail-lined track that led off to the farm, he hesitated, then said, almost as if to himself, "I don't know what you're running from, and I don't want to. I have a wife and a child, you understand, my family. It's been hard times for helping strangers." So that's the quote in chapter 33, which is exactly the same as the one in 31.
That is really cool. I never noticed that before. Which seems almost silly because I've read through these couple of chapters a few times and didn't even notice that, or it's the same, or it's not a different farmer.
The timelines get really confusing over these 3 days, which kind of makes sense because Rand is suffering from some channeling sickness. Matt's got the dagger going on. They're not really clear what's going on,
and it's from their perspective.
Yeah,
and also I think we've talked in previous episodes about how much influence Matt and the dagger could be having on the people that surround them. Mm-hmm. And right now it's just Rand.
Yeah.
But in this chapter, I think we see, I'm pretty sure this is the one where they get chased, mm-hmm. or Rand remembers that they get chased off some guy's lawn and they chase him for some ridiculous distance.
But I just wanted to establish the timeline that this chapter starts out in chapter 33 and is actually a flashback for the next 2 chapters.
Oh, crazy.
Until we catch back up with it in chapter 33.
Cool, good catch.
So if you get confused, pay attention to the scarves. That tells you whether it's before or after they've gotten the scarves.
I gotcha. We open up this chapter with Rand and Matt kind of hiding alongside the road. They're afraid that any rider coming up the road could be a Myrddraal. They're just they're like hunted rabbits. They're literally hiding in ditches on the side of the road every time someone comes.
Mm-hmm. And part of that is because they've encountered a few dark friends at this point.
Yeah.
right? Since this is actually a flashback.
Oh yeah, not that they don't have a reason to fear.
right.
And so this is after they meet Hake.
Yes.
So yeah, really paranoid. Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense.
It gets a little confusing, but if you keep track of it, it's like, oh yeah, that makes more sense.
There's also a moment that I think we get to in the next chapter, but where Rand channels, and it almost seems like immediately he's sick.
Right, because it gets closer and
It's
closer.
like confused and yeah, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. So this is after that. This is after he gets sick. It had not begun like this, their journey down Camelin Road. For a long time after and then it starts telling you the story. For a long time after leaving Whitebridge, Rand would suddenly find himself staring back down the road behind them. And that's where he's looking for Thom Merrilin. Hoping he's going to catch up. But so everything above that sentence is after the Four Kings.
Okay.
Everything after that is the beginning of the flashback.
The next thing I have, just to kind of demonstrate what's going on, is a little quote. Sometimes they got to ride in a farmer's wagon for a little distance, a mile or 5, but more often they walked. Men on horseback they avoided. They scramble off the road and hide.
They're definitely looking out for fades.
Rand thinks about homesickness, and Matt's slowly going crazy. After that, on 458, I have that Rand notes that he hasn't been dreaming. I wanted to see if you had anything to say about that.
This is where, again, I come back to the dagger didn't immediately stop Ishmael from getting into the dreams, but it's corrupting Matt, and I think it's corrupting Rand too.
I'm nodding.
And so I think that now the corruption has grown enough that they're not dreaming, they're not entering the world of dreams, and Ishmael can't find them.
I thought you might say that, and I thought like that's what I saw when I first. That's what I thought when I first saw that. The quote is, "He did not dream that he could remember, but he did not sleep well."
That could also be it, that they're just on the run and not sleeping deep enough to actually enter the world of dreams.
Oh, maybe. I thought maybe the dagger, because Matt never sleeps well.
Right. So I'm assuming it's the dagger.
Yeah.
That it's keeping them both up. Just, that paranoia, like you sitting up in the middle of the night, like, oh, did I forget something? No, okay.
Yeah.
And they're just contributing that paranoia to being on the run. But
Sort of shielding them with its own evil.
Exactly.
The more we get into this and go through these chapters, the more I realize just how important the dagger is. I mean, I already knew it was important, but there's a lot going on with it. And it's such a critical thing.
It's changing a lot of the people around them.
Yeah.
And a lot of the italicized text here is really negative self-talk, which I think is something that is induced by having the dagger with them. So
Totally. The next line is, "You'll never see home again." It's italicized.
Mm-hmm.
I see a bunch, but
a lot of things like that where they're just like, they're just negative thoughts that aren't.
and they come through this village. Oh yeah, this is weird. We talked about this in another episode, but the italicized here, it says a little above what I just read. No matter what it looks like, a small voice whispered. That's not italicized. A small voice whispered in his mind, "It isn't really home. Even if you go into one of those houses, Tam won't be there. If he was, could you look him in the face?"
Rand doesn't generally have those kind of thoughts.
No. I don't. I think you're right. I think it's the dagger affecting. Mm-hmm. It has like a radius, so you don't just have to touch it. You can just be near it.
Or near someone who is touching it. I think Matt really is the person who's creating the paranoia. And as we get to the farmers, we'll see more examples of that.
Kind of funny. Maybe not that funny, but sort of funny scenes.
Yeah, definitely. At this point, they've just gotten on the road. They're just curling up under bushes, riding a few hours on a cart. But, they're just trying to get by, and they're not doing a very good job of it.
Yeah.
And they get in an argument about the dagger, about selling it.
I've highlighted, one afternoon, Rand mentioned the dagger with the ruby in the hilt while they were trudging down the road. He went on a few steps before he realized that Matt had stopped. He stopped too, skipping a little. "What's the matter, Matt?" he said. "Why are you so anxious to sell it?" Matt demanded angrily. "I found it after all. You ever think I might like to keep it?" And they start this 2-page argument where they're just going back and forth.
And Matt's like, "Well, why don't you sell your sword?" And he's like, "It's my dad's sword, you moron. That's just something you stole for profit. Why not sell it for profit?"
I think he even brings up the point, keep the knife, just pry out that ruby.
Right.
we could, ride in style with like servants and beautiful wagons all the way to Camelin.
But I really think the scene is just to demonstrate them bickering.
Yeah.
Which they haven't shown, but now with the paranoia setting in, they're starting to argue.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matt's clearly paranoid about the losing the dagger.
Oh, totally.
But he does bring up a good point when he says, "Who would I sell it to, Rand? A farmer would have to pay in chickens. We couldn't buy a carriage with chickens."
That is a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he says, even if we showed it to someone, they'd probably think we stole it.
If they were like still with Moraine, then that she could give them some credibility, but that she'd never help them sell it.
They've been walking and living in the same clothes for like weeks now. That's enough to get them harassed anyway or chased off.
A little bit. Yeah, I mean, I guess they probably have. I mean, they've got good boots. They've got well-made, if plain, clothing.
Yeah.
They're not in rags. They're dirty. They look like they're well-worn and traveled, but they probably don't smell, any more than someone who's been on the road.
Yeah.
And they're probably, I don't think they grow beard. It is weird that they don't grow beards.
Perrin does.
Perrin definitely does. But I'm wondering, just like while they're traveling, do you think they're shaving?
No.
Okay, I don't think Rand can grow a beard because the Aiel men generally don't need to shave.
Do they not need to, or do they?
I always thought they didn't need to, but I know they always had clean-shaven faces, but I always thought it was because...
But don't they like say a joke like if you have a beard, they're like, "What, did you forget to sharpen your knife or something?" I don't know, but I can't ever think of a reference to them shaving.
Right.
Which you'd think it would come up.
But Matt shaves, I think. Like,
oh, does he?
I feel like when he's like in the White Tower recovering, we see a scene with him like,
okay,
talking about shaving, and he, I think when he's sleeping with the Aiel woman, he shaves a few times.
Oh,
Perrin definitely thinks about shaving, but I don't think we see Matt shave or Rand shave.
No, I can't think of a time, but I don't know.
Yeah,
it might just not be.
Yeah, that's not a detail I would have necessarily kept track of. Okay. And I noticed things are getting more expensive as they head towards civilization. They're like, whoa, we had some money, but this is not as much. And that's the other thing. They have some money. They're not totally broke.
Right. Rand mentions that they have enough to basically to buy a meal here and there, but not enough to ever sleep in an inn. They stop to work with someone or to work for a farmer along the way. And we see this funny thing where they like do some of the work and they're promised food and a place to stay. And at the end of the day, the farmers kind of says, well, our sons are coming to visit tonight, the old man said. All 4 of them. I forgot. They're all 4 coming. Big lads. Strong. Be here any time now. And he kind of goes on and they like push a basket of, it seems like a good amount of food. They push a basket at them and kind of shut the door in their face.
Yeah.
And I attribute that to Matt making everyone feel nervous.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that, but I think it's also the dagger making them paranoid about strangers.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean.
Because, I mean, there's 2 things going on. He's both got his behavior, which they talk about him sort of acting shifty and saying, like, why would they trust us? We're just random strangers.
Yeah.
Why are they helping us?
He's up to something.
But I think Matt's mostly saying that to Rand.
Yeah.
So, I don't think it's necessarily obvious to the farmers that he's a little shifty, but...
Oh, no, yeah, I think it's just a general paranoia sphere.
That's what I think it is. Call it. Yeah, I think it's the paranoia from the dagger.
Yeah, and the next thing I have is... I'll just read some of this. It could have been worse, he thought. 3 days earlier, while they were still working, they had the dogs set on them. The dogs and the farmer and his 2 sons, waving cudgels, chased them out to the Camelin Road and half a mile down it before giving up.
I mean, what kind of sense does that make?
It
You've
doesn't.
got these 2
That's
guys,
crazy.
You bring them in, you let them start working, they're in the middle of working.
Yeah.
And then you just decide to chase them out and chase them halfway down.
Half a mile?
Yeah.
Is that necessary?
No.
Just ask them to leave, right. You figure you start there.
Right.
Not with the cudgels.
So I don't think it's just Matt's behavior.
Yeah, and right like 2 sentences after that I have the farmer yelling, "Don't come back here." He shouted after them, "I don't know what you're up to, but don't let me see your shifty eyes again," which is something you hear Matt saying a lot.
Yeah.
Something about shifty eyes. And the next line is, Matt had started to turn back, fumbling at his quiver, but Rand pulled him on. "Are you crazy?" Matt gave him a sullen look, but at least he kept running. Yeah, that is really crazy there. I mean, the farmers are acting really crazy, but for Matt to turn around with the bow, like,
Yeah.
he's about to murder them.
Yeah.
For being chased off someone's property. Like, they kind of, it's weird, but they're still in the right.
You're watching what tore Shadar Logoth apart.
Yeah. He almost turns around and kills him. If Rand hadn't been there, he might have.
Absolutely. Or they would have killed him.
Yeah. The further they went, the more suspicious of strangers Matt became, and the less he was able to hide it, or bothered to.
And then the meals got skimpier for the same work, and sometimes not even the barn was offered as a place to sleep. As they get further and further along, again, I don't think it's just Matt's behavior. I think it's the dagger is exerting a greater and greater influence faster and faster.
Yeah.
Rand may have some protection because he can channel.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but it makes sense.
Because there does seem to be some protection from evil for channelers.
Right. Moraine talks about it. But then, a solution to all their problems came to Rand, or so it seemed, and it came at Grinwell's farm.
And this is where they get to meet Else.
Oh, I always said Elsie, but
I think
it's one of those again.
Yeah, just the way it's pronounced in the audiobook.
Else?
Else.
Okay. We'll stick with that.
I would also pronounce it Elsie if I was reading it.
Yeah.
And sure, that's the way I pronounced it the first time I read this. But yeah, so she ends up in the White Tower.
Yeah. I noted that she's like a low-level channeler. She just doesn't know it yet. But...
Yeah. And she gets impersonated by Lanfear.
Yeah.
And that's how she gets into Matt's room.
I also kind of wanted to know, Robert Jordan does this, but I really like that there's been like a lot of darkness in the last, not just paragraphs, but maybe a couple of chapters. And this next few pages where they spend time with the Grinwell family seem really pleasant, and even Matt seems to soften up a little. And of course, the farm is run by Master Grinwell. It just, I don't know. He always does that. Grinwell, it's a happy name.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he understands the necessity of giving his readers time to breathe between the action. I think that's where you get some of what people might call some of the slower scenes, especially later on. You get the circus. You get...
to like break up the bouts of murder,
exactly,
destruction.
Yeah, the characters get a chance, like when they're with the Tinkers, like Perrin's doing, that they take these moments to enjoy life.
The Trollocs to the Tinkers to the White Cloaks. Well, they're being chased by the Trollocs, and then they spend time with the Tinkers, and it's like a calm, and then they run into the White Cloaks. Less calm.
A little less calm, yeah. But I like these little family scenes.
Yeah.
So basically Else starts flirting.
Yeah.
She thinks Rand's real cute.
Dark-haired, big-eyed, and pretty, Else grinned impudently at them whenever her parents were not looking. While they worked, moving barrels and sacks of grain in the barn, she hung over the stall door, humming to herself and chewing the end of her long pigtail, watching them. Rand she watched especially. Perrin would know how to handle this, I thought.
Running joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. No one knows how to handle it.
Yeah. I once saw like a gag gift thing, and it was a book titled Everything Men Know About Women, and you open it and the pages are blank.
That'd be like a good diary to like keep track of your significant other's like habits or something like that. It comes blank and then you can like make entries.
To try to puzzle something out.
And so she starts flirting hardcore, and basically to distract from the awkwardness as night rolls on, they start, juggling and playing the flute like Thom taught them.
Here I'd just have the younger children at least were a blessing in Rand's eyes. Matt's wariness always eased a little when there were children around. I thought that was an interesting note. Even Matt chills out a little when he's surrounded by all these little kids.
It's hard to be suspicious of children. They don't have ulterior motivations. They want the candy.
Right. But we can all understand that.
Yeah. So I don't think Matt is that far into the paranoia that he suspects children. So he can relax a little bit around them.
And that's when Matt pulls out the multicolored juggling balls.
Mm-hmm.
Make the kids laugh.
He does a 6-ball circle. Circles are hard, man. Cascades are way easier.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
I was trying to juggle limes at work the other day, and I can do like maybe one rotation at best.
3 limes?
Yeah, just only 3 limes. Definitely not 6 and not with one. Is a circle when you pass one to the other hand like under and then you throw them in a big arc like in a big circle?
Right. It's the way that like juggling is always portrayed in like cartoons.
Yeah.
It's like you're just throwing the balls in a circle, but that's so much harder than usual normal juggling.
I think I've only seen that a couple times in my life.
Yeah.
And then when Matt was done, Rand pulls out his flute. And that's how this starts.
Because he plays a song and Elsa's like leaning forward and gives a long sigh and smiles at him. I'm gonna lean forward, give you a smile and sigh at you here real quick.
She says, "You play so beautifully. I never heard anything so beautiful." Mistress Grinwell suddenly paused in her sewing and raised an eyebrow at her daughter, then gave Rand a long, appraising look.
You've seen Spaceballs?
Yeah.
Do you remember when the robot maid senses that the princess is flirting with the captain and her virginity alert goes off?
Her virginity alert. That's what's happening here. At some point, she talks about how much she likes tall men. Oh, and all the men are short in this village or something like that?
Yeah. Well, all the men are short in the village compared to Rand. Everybody's short in every village compared to Rand.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was thinking that maybe short in general, and Rand would be a giant then.
And then, Mrs. Grinwell pulls that, they can sleep in your bed, and you can sleep with me.
Yeah.
Do not even think about trying to get up.
Not going anywhere. Mistress Grinwell kind of hustles the boys out after this. I think they stay the night, and she gets them to leave early in the morning.
And I'm wondering if one of the reasons the Paranoia doesn't force them to kick them out is because of the children. That Matt is relaxing, so he's giving off less evil Shadar Logoth vibes.
Maybe there's something going on there, but I don't really know. But before I think that conversation, Master Grinwell says, I've paid money for worse entertainment in an inn. Like, you might want to think about that.
Yeah, that's the seed of the idea that sort of gets them going, and they sort of become 2-bit Gleeman.
Yeah, that's what gives Rand the idea.
Which we are almost done with this chapter, aren't we?
Yeah, they leave in the morning. Rand's very polite, as he always is when they're getting kicked out. I have the whole next day, Matt tweeted at him about Else as they made their way down the road.
I did notice the father has totally missed the flirting, and he's like, "Oh, you can stay and work," and the mom's like, "Nope, they gotta go."
Oh, they'll have to leave early in the morning. Wait, is it father or are they husband and wife? I don't remember.
Master and mistress.
Okay.
Father and mother.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they get to the next town in Arene, and they basically do a repeat performance at an inn rather than at a farmer's house, where Matt juggles and Rand plays the flute. Yeah,
and that's their very first. And the inn's patrons did not seem to care if Matt stared at them suspiciously. As long as this goes on. There were always strangers at an inn.
Yeah, maybe a lot of people helped diffuse the effect, too, of the dagger.
Makes sense.
That the effect isn't quite strong enough yet to really pull in everybody.
And then I just have kind of the clothes. That became their way of traveling. With a little luck and maybe a ride or two, they could always reach the next village by dark. If there was more than one in a village, the innkeepers would often bid for them, once they heard Rand's flute and saw Matt juggle. Skip a couple sentences, and in the mornings, there was almost always someone to offer a ride. Another farmer who had stayed too late and drunk too much, or a merchant who had liked their entertainment enough not to mind if they hopped on the back of one of his wagons. Rand began to think their problems were over, until they reached Camelin, but then they came to 4 Kings.
Oh, 4 Kings in Shadow. One of my favorite chapters.
Yeah, this is a good one.
And the other thing I remember, there's that fan-made short in 2013
called
Flashback. Light from Shadow, which is entirely based on that chapter. It's got a little more in it, but it's almost entirely just this next chapter.
Yeah, we should totally give that a shot. We watched that a while back. I really liked it.
Yeah, me too.
It's kind of a fanfic, but it's a short film.
It's a short film, mostly based around chapter 32. I've seen software that'll do that recently.
Where you can plug in like sound bites and
Yeah, you can plug
string
in
them
a
together.
short, not very many words that someone says, a sentence or two, and then just basically make them say anything. They did it with Barack Obama, which I thought was really good.
Oh, I kind of like that.
They just took like a public speech and totally made him say, and then they did some visual software stuff too, which wasn't as convincing, but it made his lips move to what he was saying.
Yeah.
So it was like a video feed and audio feed. And it was, if you didn't know it had been altered and you were just like seeing it on the TV from far away, it would be pretty convincing.
I wouldn't mind having Barack like give me driving instructions or, you know.
Or like George Washington or...
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it'd be hard to get voices of dead people, but you can make them up.
Sure.
And just, you know, the usefulness of like, well, you get a voice actor instead of having to say every single word and then paste those together.
Just have them read a couple paragraphs.
And then let the software do the rest.
Does it sound really convincing? Like not choppy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell who it is. You know, it sounds like Barack Obama talking, and it was not
Crazy.
the words he said. I'll have to pull up that video after we're done.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?